I don't know about you, but I love stories. They play a huge part in our lives, whether as imaginative creations which become books or films, or those from history and archaeology. So it's particularly fitting that in this video I can combine both a history of the past and a world-famous story created by one of the greatest storysmiths of all time, J.R.R. Tolkien. We're here today in Lydney, a lovely part of Gloucestershire, England, and close to the majestic River Severn as it joins the Bristol Channel. And in this picturesque part of the world, we have not one, but two stories. The first is about how this landscape, with its history and archaeology, may have helped inspire Tolkien when he was creating the world of Middle-earth. The other, which we shall present in another video, is about the intriguing archaeology of this site. So, to our first story. 1600 years ago, in the 4th century AD, a Roman soldier called Silvianus visited Lydney, and unbeknown to him, may have inspired one of the greatest stories of all time. Lydney is an archaeological site now, but back then, well, imagine it to be a bit of a health spa. On top of this hill, there was a Roman complex comprising a large guest house for visitors to stay, with sweeping views across the valley to the Severn estuary. Next door was a bathhouse where people could relax, take the waters and get clean. And opposite was a temple with wonderful mosaics. It was dedicated to the god Nodens, a god of healing, the sea, hunting and dogs, and a place where people could pray and make offerings for good health. Well, Silvianus came here, and whilst he was here, he lost a gold ring. For visitors to the baths back then, there weren't secure lockers like we have today when we visit the gym or swimming pool. Instead, there were open shelves, watched over by slaves or servants, and it wasn't uncommon for things to go missing, leading to some very angry Romans. The way they dealt with their anger and their desire for justice was to ask for help from the gods, and that's exactly what Silvianus did. He wrote a curse tablet, known as a defixio, and left it at the temple of Nodens, together with an offering. The curse read, "To the god Nodens, Silvianus has lost his ring and given half of its value to Nodens. Among those who are called Senechianus, do not allow health until he brings it to the temple of Nodens." Now what's interesting here is that Silvianus actually named the person he thought had stolen his ring, Senechiacus. We don't know why he thought Senechiacus had stolen his ring, but evidently he thought he had a good enough reason to blame him. And the story might have stopped there if it wasn't for a later discovery 80 miles to the east of Lydney, near the town of Silchester. Because in the 18th century, a lucky farmer ploughing his field discovered a bright, shiny gold Roman ring, which had been inscribed, "Senechiacus, may you live with God." Now the farmer sold the ring to the local landowners, the Shute family, who lived in a big house called the Vine nearby. They added it to their collections, and in fact you can still see it there today. Then later in the 19th century, none other than Silvianus's curse tablet was discovered here in Lydney, although at the time no connection was made between the two. In fact, it wasn't until 1929 that the renowned archaeologist Mortimer Wheeler wondered if the ring and curse tablet were associated. He had 2 points. Firstly, the inscription of Senechiacus had been added to an older ring, so it wasn't one that Senechiacus had made for himself and presumably was second-hand. And secondly, the name Senechiacus itself wasn't a very popular name in the Roman world. So, was it just possible that the ring found in Silchester was none other than a stolen ring of Silvianus from Lydney? Had Senechiacus engraved the ring with his own name after he stole it? It was an intriguing possibility. Wheeler needed to do more research, and to help him he called on his old friend J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien was a professor of Anglo-Saxon studies at Oxford University and was brought on board to help identify who the god Nodens was. And as part of his research, he would have seen the curse tablet and found out about the stolen ring. Tolkien worked with Wheeler on the project for some 15 years, and interestingly, it was only a year after he started working on the project that he started writing The Hobbit, the first of his Lord of the Rings sagas. So, did the historic story of a stolen and cursed ring influence him at all? We know that Tolkien knew about the famous Germanic myths of the Ring of the Nibelung, but he categorically denied that this story had ever influenced Lord of the Rings. But since he never mentioned the Ring of Silvianus, we will never know for sure if this ring story inspired him or not. But if we sleuth a bit more, just to add further to the mystery of what inspired Tolkien, the Roman site of Lydney is known locally as Dwarves Hill. The Roman site is built on a pre-existing Iron Age fort, and there are ancient Iron Age mine workings on the top of the hill. In fact, the site is riddled with mine tunnels known locally as scowls. As time went by and the local people forgot about the Celts and the Romans, these archaeological remains were interpreted as something otherworldly. They were said to be the remains of a dwarf hall and dwarf mines. If you look at the remains of the hypocaust, the pillars of the ancient underfloor heating system, you can see how people in the past thought that these were full height and suggested the home of little people. Could these have been an inspiration for the mines of Moria and the Dwarvish realm? We know that Tolkien was said to have been very taken with the area and may have used Gloucestershire and the West Country in general as his inspiration for the Shire. And as a last piece of the puzzle, when Tolkien would have visited this site, he would have passed by these amazing and very beautiful sweet chestnut trees. They're probably around 400 years old. Just look at their twisting, gnarly trunks with their heavily furrowed bark. Can you see a face in there? Is it possible, just possible, that these inspired the Ents? So these are the stories and mysteries of Lydney. Did Sennacheribus steal Sylvanus' ring and take it to Silchester where he ultimately lost it? And did the story of Sylvianus' ring, and indeed the site of Lydney, inspire Tolkien at all? So what do you, our fellow sleuths, think? Drop us a comment below and let us know.